Continuing with Ephesians chapter 5. Remember, we've been coming through how when we are living under the Spirit, then we're going to, live all of these things. We're going to speak to one another with psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. We're going to sing. We're going to make melody. We're going to give thanks for all things, right, to the Father, and subjecting ourselves to one another in fear of Christ. Remember, but your translation might actually put a paragraph break here and a whole new section header because now we're supposed to submit to one another. But this is based off of, again, the idea of being under the influence of the Spirit. Okay? But now we're going to go beyond that with Paul going into this. Okay? So, wives, be subject to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ also is the head of the assembly, being himself the Savior of the body. But as the assembly is subject to Christ, so let wives also be to their own husbands in everything. So yeah, this is pretty clear. Wives are supposed to be subject to their husbands or submit to them. And this word is actually about authority. Like if you are if there's a general over you in the army, you're just private. Like they have more authority over you. So you are subject to them. You submit to them. You do what they say, right? So a lot of people have throughout history been like, well, look at this, clear teaching. Wives should just do whatever their husbands say, right? And if you look back at the ancient cultures, if you even look at some of the Jewish writings on this stuff, it's very clear. They're very intense about like, no, wives, do exactly what your husband says. Okay, like if he says jump, you say how high, right? Or just jump. Okay, like just do the thing, right? So this seems to be painting a picture that wives are just like just do whatever your husband says. Notice what Paul does with this. Okay. It's actually about just authority, right? So just as we, the church, follow where Christ is leading, you're supposed to follow. But husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the assembly and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of the water with the word, that he might present the assembly to himself gloriously, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without defect. If you're a husband and you think that by reading the previous verses that you can just boss your wife around, then you have not read these other verses, which push it way harder for you. When I read this makes it way worse for husbands because we have to take on, since we have the authority of Christ to lead, then we also have to take on the responsibility of what Christ did, which was loving to the point of giving himself up, just like Christ, right? Okay, and this washing with water thing, that's really odd. Let's go to Ezekiel 16. Okay, then I washed you with water. Yes, I thoroughly washed away your blood from you, and I anointed you with oil. I clothed you also with embroidered work and put leather sandals on you. I dressed you with fine linen and covered you with silk. I decked you with ornaments, put bracelets on your hands, and put a chain around your neck. I put a ring in your nose, earrings in your ears, and a beautiful crown on your head. Thus you were decked with gold and silver. Your clothing was fine linen, silk, and embroidered work. You ate fine flour, honey, and oil. You were exceedingly beautiful, and you prospered to royal estate. Other translations say you became a queen. Okay? So what we have here, all right, is this weird imagery from Ezekiel. If you go read the whole chapter, it's very odd because it starts with this baby kicking in its blood, just abandoned on the side of the road. Just like, yeah, okay, you're just kicking there, okay? But then the baby grows up into a young woman, okay? And then from there grows up into a fine, full woman, right? Not just young woman anymore. Okay, now a full lady. And then God adorns her with bracelets and earrings and nose rings and necklaces and actually a crown. I didn't even draw that, sorry. And like all this fine linen and all this kind of stuff. This is all part of the imagery of becoming a queen. And then if you keep going, what does she do with this beauty? Not good things. Okay, not good things at all. Okay, but the point is that just like God adorned Israel, had Israel grow up, that is our goal as husbands for our wives. Even so, husbands also ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his own wife loves himself. For no man ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, even as the Lord also does the assembly. Because we are members of his body, of his flesh and bones. All right? So this imagery is actually apparently taken from other uh, in the time period, like marriage vows and stuff, or like things that you were supposed to do. Like you're supposed to do these things, take care of, feed, clothe, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, hey, you do that for yourself. And since we're one body, we're all in this, we're all under Christ, like then you need to be doing that for your wife too, husband. Okay. So if you think that submitting and following where the husband's leading is the tough job, look what God is demanding of husbands. And we husbands, we got to step up because we need to be doing better at this for sure. Okay. All right. Okay. For this cause, a man will leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife. Then the two will become one flesh. This mystery is great, but I speak concerning Christ and the assembly. Nevertheless, each of you must also love his own wife, even as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. So we're talking about how we became part of his body, of his flesh and bones. And then he quotes from Genesis 2, where he says, therefore, a man will leave his father and mother and join with his wife, and they will become one flesh. And he says, hey, look, we're not talking actually about marriage right now. This isn't the great mystery. The mystery is not that. That's in chapter 2 of Genesis. You know about that. That's been around forever. What we're talking about is that now in Christ, the assembly, or the church in other translations, the church is now united with Christ as one. That's the great mystery. This whole thing that we've been doing from the beginning with marriage is actually part of this mystery about our relationship to Christ and how we're supposed to connect to him. So while it's very practical in like, hey, this is how we're supposed to treat each other as husbands and wives, it's actually also a sign for what it's like to be with Christ and in Christ. And so, yeah, because of all of this stuff, yeah, you need to respect and you need to love. And that needs to happen, okay? Because we are under the Spirit where we are submitting to one another. That is the entire point here. Okay, going into chapter 6. Okay, so we've dealt with husbands and wives relationships. There's more that we could say on this. People go all over the place with this. The key point is that we are submitting to one another, and while the wife has a responsibility to understand the authority of the husband needs to understand that his authority needs to be just like Christ's, where Christ laid down his life for us. Are you doing that? So now, moving to the next stage in the family. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment, with a promise, that it may go well with you and you may live long on the earth. Okay, so this is children, you're supposed to obey your parents. And by the way, everybody agreed with this. Like, this was not new information, not just for Jewish culture, like the whole culture, okay? So children, obey your parents. Yeah, duh. Everybody agrees with this. In fact, a lot of Jewish scholars, aside from like, the Shema and like all things you do for God, like they figured this was the most important command when it came to interpersonal relationships. As some people pointed out, like if you can't obey your parents, how are you going to obey God, right? Like, so the point is that children, you need to learn how to follow your parents. And what's interesting is that Paul is like, and look, this isn't even just like, this is the rule. This is actually the first commandment that actually even has any kind of, hey, and you get a benefit for it. All the other ones are like, just don't do that or do this, right? So in this case, if we go to Exodus, right? Here we go, Exodus 20. Honor your father and mother, that your days may be long in the land which Yahweh your God gives you. So, hey, honor your parents so that you'll live a long time in the land. But if we go over to Deuteronomy chapter 5, notice, honor your father and mother as Yahweh your God commanded you, that your days may be long, and that it may go well with you in the land which Yahweh your God gives you. Deuteronomy expands on this verse in Exodus, where it's just about living long in the land. And Deuteronomy is like, no. You get to live long and enjoy the land, okay? And so here it is, honor your father and mother, that may go well with you and you may live long on the earth. So he's taking that idea and pushing it even further into, this isn't just about living in the land. This is about long life, which means it's long life wherever you're living, not just in the land, okay? Honor your father and mother because it has a promise. Okay, cool. If you are a father and you're like, yeah, that's right. My kids need to do exactly what I tell them. Notice what Paul does to you next. You fathers, don't provoke your children to wrath, but nurture them in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. See, because in this day and age, when Paul is writing this, fathers had complete control of life and death for their children. So if he wanted, if a father wanted to kill his kids, he absolutely could do so. Yep, you're not obeying me, you're dead. They have the choice. And what does Paul say to someone who has complete and utter authority over his household? Don't provoke them. Don't exasperate them. Don't make your kids mad. But instead, nurture them in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Your goal is not to wield your authority, man. Your goal is to bring them up so that they're following God. That's the whole point of what we're doing here. So if you think, again, fathers, that your authority is for your benefit, you are sorely mistaken. That is not what Paul is preaching. He is very clear that this actually makes it far more responsibility for us as fathers to do the right thing. It's crazy. Yeah, okay, just tell you. Okay, so now, moving on through the household, okay, now we're to servants. And we're just going to lay a couple things out here, okay? One, slaves are like all over the place in the Bible because they're all over the place at this time in the world. And the Bible does not come out and say, yeah, this is bad. Don't have slavery, okay? It doesn't have that because we're writing to people who are just living their lives in the cultures that they're in. And so this is a thing. Lots more we could talk about on this. There's a lot of discussion going on. I even made a video about this. But like there's a lot to be said for the whole slavery discussion and what's going on. And we'll uncover a couple things as we're talking about this here. But I just want to acknowledge this ahead of time. This is about slavery. But it's also about how we interact with people who are under our authority. How do we interact with them? What are we doing? So this is for bosses, I think, as well. This is for teachers. This is for anybody who has authority over somebody else that's not immediately in your family, but under your purview of some kind, right? And as much as we like to think that like, hey, we've totally got this unlocked because, we don't have slavery anymore, which good. Okay, slavery, not good. Okay, and we'll talk about more of that in a moment. But like, I think that like a lot of people feel trapped in their jobs and like their bosses have authority over them in ways that are completely uncomfortable. I think there's a lot of that going on. I don't think that you can look at our modern system and be like, now we've totally figured it out. And we're definitely not oppressing people or being mean to them or anything like that. Like all corporations and groups are doing a good job. I think that there are people who are doing a good job with this, but I don't think that's universal. Okay. Like that. So this applies to all of us here if we have anybody under us. Okay. Slaves, be obedient to those who according to the flesh are your masters, with fear and trembling, in singleness of your heart as to Christ, not in the way of service only when eyes are on you as men pleasers, but as servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will doing service as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatever good thing each one does, he will receive the same good again from the Lord, whether he is bound or free. So, if you're an employee, work hard. Work hard, make certain that you are performing well, not just when people are looking at you. In fact, don't even think about like, oh, well, was my boss, well, I need to work. Like, no, you work hard all the time. Why? Because you're working for the Lord. This applies to students, to us as employees, to people who are out there doing stuff in the world, right? Because whether we are slave or free, bound or free, this same thing applies. Everybody needs to do good work. Okay? So cool. Slaves, get your act together, okay? Employees, get your act together. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, employees, those lazy people. Oh, by the way, they had the same view about slaves and all that kind of stuff. Lazy people, yeah, you just have to beat them to get them to go. You need to hold that carrot out. You need to make them go. Again, if you think that having authority is about, check this out. Verse 9. You masters, do the same things to them and give up threatening, knowing that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no partiality with him. You think you've got this figured out? You think that you have authority and so you can use this well? Deuteronomy chapter 10. For Yahweh your God, he is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, the mighty and the awesome, who doesn't respect persons or take bribes. who shows no partiality, like different translations, because doesn't respect persons does have the air today of like, wait, he doesn't respect people? No, it's he doesn't care about your authority. Why? Why would God, who is God of gods, Lord of lords, great, mighty, and awesome, why would he care about you, Mr. President of this company? Like, you think he's impressed by your credentials? No, he is not. Okay? So no, if you think that you are high and mighty, you're way off the mark when it comes to, therefore I should be able to do what I want. Okay? But also here, in Job 31, if I have despised the cause of my male servant or of my female servant when they contended with me, what then will I do when God rises up? When he visits, what will I answer him? Didn't he who made me in the womb make him? Didn't one fashion us in the womb? So even here in Job, we have a very clear message about how masters and slaves, not different here. Okay, which actually then leads to these ideas of emancipation and that we should get rid of slavery and all this stuff. It is biblically based to get rid of slavery. Okay, it's just that when we're writing letters to people in a particular culture and time, we're not trying to upend the system right now. That's not the goal. The goal is to get people to follow God, and in so doing, they'll be like, "Hang on a second, what are we doing here? What's going on with this?" Okay, and that's what we see in history with this. Okay, so is slavery good? No. And why not? Well, because they're made by God too. Your slaves, your employees, the people under you, your kids, your wife, all of them made by God. Okay? So what are we doing here? Right? So this passage, and there is a lot more to be said, and a lot of people say a lot of things about this authority thing and who is subject to whom and how are we supposed to do this and what does submitting mean? Why are we doing all this? And how does this all work? I don't think we solved it all today, but I hope that this gave you a perspective on how this is supposed to work. When we are following the Spirit, we submit to one another, and in the hierarchies of our world, because there are hierarchies, and that's fine, that actually means that people who have more authority have more responsibility to actually be more Christ-like. And then the people under them serve them and follow them and do the things that need to be done. Whether that's wives or children or employees, servants, slaves, right? Whatever role you have authority, and if you're under that, you need to step up and act like you're working for the Lord, doing things for him in all of this. And when people are acting appropriately, this goes really well. So that's the whole point. When we're following and walking the Spirit, this is great. So this shouldn't freak us out. This should instead inspire us to walk more in the way that the Lord has us. Unfortunately, things are broken, so it's not like this is easy and like we've solved everything and everything's okay right now. But as we follow the Lord, may this be more and more true of us and the people above us and below us in our structures.